Good morning. We are live from day 2 of Fashion Week Men's Spring Summer 20. We have just come out of the first show of today, which was Art School Spring Summer 20. I always think we're super duper lucky to have Art School on the schedule in London. They are kind of carving out this amazing platform for people who are queer, and the clothes really represent that. They are one of the only people on the schedule who truly represent queer fashion, queer people, queer culture. So it's incredibly important, personally, I think, to have these guys on the schedule. And I think internationally it's nice to have everyone looking at London and knowing that we're breaking the mould in the best way. That aside, fashion this time was really interesting. Eden and Tom had both been saying that they were working to make this slightly less performative, but as we walked in there was a musician stand and amps and a salt ring around musicians, so I already thought, how not performative is this going to be? There was definitely a performative undertone, but it was definitely pared back. Often with Art School there are models and choreographed dances and wonderful displays of energy, and this was much more of a solemn affair. Models were barefoot and slowly walking down. The live music was really slow and gentle and almost not ominous, but there's a real slow, sad undertone to the aura of the room. And that was on purpose. So here in the press release, well, you can't really call it a press release, there's like a little excerpt from Derek Jarman's Modern Nature 1991. Derek Jarman, Art School have referenced before in the manner of kind of collecting things. They've had kind of hair pieces with footwear and collected bits and bobs from safe queer spaces in previous collections, but this was much more an homage to Derek and what he would find in the potting shed or what he would find in the garden. And for those of you who aren't acquainted with Derek Jarman, huge queer rights activist, unfortunately passed away from AIDS, and did loads and loads about pushing the boundaries for the queer community in his day, and really pushed to break rules in schools that were against teaching about homosexuality. Did a huge amount for the queer community, so it's really important, I think, that Art School are referencing him, and obviously it means a lot to them. And so these kind of Derek Jarman elements come through in the little accessories. Often Art School are known for these fantastically flamboyant, beautiful big jewels that have previously been worked with Dominic Meyer, the illustrator, but in this case they were really dainty, kind of fork and knife and like little spoons and little odd bits and bobs that you might find knocking about the house or the shed or at the bottom of the garden, which I thought was really lovely and emotive. There's some really interesting elements here as well. Models' eyes are whited out and some are really huge black pupils, and the reason for this is that Eden and Tom were trying to project these models into the upper echelon. They're really pushing these models into deity-like status, and they were saying that often, because they are, as I said earlier, the only people kind of on the schedule really pushing for this inclusive fashion, inclusive casting, inclusive performative element, that it often falls to them for people to look for guidance, or Art School are often branded as the people to go to for support, or the people who can nurture the queer community. And while they certainly are that, that's a lot of pressure for two people, particularly such a young brand. So they really wanted to open up this show as somewhere that projects these individuals as deities and gods. And if anyone watching the show can see these individuals and how fantastic they look in Art School and put them above, and that's a real step, certainly in Eden and Tom's mind, which is really lovely and powerful, particularly with this like emotive music that we've got going on. So let's talk about fashion, because I've waffled about context quite a lot. Sequins and feathers are something that we definitely attribute to Art School, and we have done for a while. Lots of beautiful on the bias dresses and skirts and two pieces. Collection starts in silvers and then works into blacks. Cal and I were saying earlier that the beginning and the end were our favourites, the top and tail. The middle was slightly tailored looks, which is also quintessential for Art School. They cut everything on the bias, so no matter gender, no matter shape, everything can suit you. And I thought actually there was a really wonderful moment where Tom came down in a bias cut leather dress, which was cinched at the back, hand painted with leather leopard print, and then a female model walked down as well, and I really loved seeing both of them in that dress, because it really just hammers home that any form, any gender can wear any of these clothes, and I think that's really important. The absolute showstopper was the wonderful dress at the end. I want to say ball gown, but I don't think it was quite that shape. Covered in sequins, beautiful feather moments, all this beautiful black draping, and you could see as the model walked, she was kind of clutching the weight of it, and I thought that was really beautiful and long overdue. It's something I really wanted from the art school duo for a while. Tailoring and these wonderful kind of nightwear, elegant evening gowns is something they do exceptionally well. I will say there was also some really nice wearable daywear in there too, in these kind of nice nurse white pinafores with really sharp darting on the back and the front. But to me that felt a little sad, because I was thinking of Derek Jarman and AIDS crisis, and these nurse references made me feel a bit.
Definitely some sad undertones.
Definitely some sad undertones, but beautiful nonetheless. I'm bringing you in, Cal, because I'm talking a lot.
I think we're in a really privileged position to be able to speak to art school and about what they're doing, and speak to their collaborators and their friends, and even be their collaborators and friends. I think that's a really lovely position to be in, and that really helped them, and obviously helps us review. But I did sit there and try not to think as someone who knows them, knows their process, and someone looking on Show Studio just at the clothes and what would translate from that. And as you said, I think the first few looks and the last few looks would really translate in this kind of godly, that would get across what they were saying. And I think some of that got lost in the middle with the heavier looks in terms of what they were trying to say, and also the aesthetic that they were trying to kind of push for this season. And I don't have the answer to that, but I was trying to think, I was like, if we didn't have the access to go backstage, would we have understood from the more pared down looks, whereas the really decadent looks really translated this message.
These queer deities.
And it's funny to put yourself in that mindset and kind of question it from a different view. And things like that salt ring around the musician, obviously for us we get to see that, and I think that was actually a really clear line of kind of warding off bad spirits, or at least keeping them in a contained area. And those things, I wonder how they communicate online, and I don't really have the answers. It's just the question that stayed in my head is that, are the customers seeing the immense amount of thought, and is that being translated purely in the clothes? And it's clever they're taking away the performative aspect, but still I think sometimes that can not overshadow the collection, but it's that message is put into that, not the actual clothing, and in the end that's where a customer will come into contact with it.
That's very true. So if you're looking at it on face value, do you get all the narrative? I would hope so. I'd hope so.
But then also, when I've mentioned this to other designers, not about art school, but they said, sometimes the narrative actually isn't important. It's important to the season, but when it's hanging on the rack, it's not about that. It's about the piece. It's about the tailoring. It's about just that. And the story is for the brand and for continuing my line of work. But actually, by the time it gets to a store, it's just, does it look nice on that person? So different designers answer these questions in different ways.
Very true. I do think I think one of the strengths of art school though is, and also where I'm saying narrative, but I feel like it's more of a message, because it's less of a story. It's actual, it's truths, it's people's lives. But I do think art school have quite a good balance in that, because everything is cut on the bias. I think there's a real craft level, so that if you weren't at the show, yes, I totally agree with you that if you were looking at the runway images and the flat 2D kind of statics, you might not get the same emotional pull that we had. But I would argue that if you were looking in the stores, and if you were looking in the showrooms, or whenever you come into physical contact with art school, and the detail, the sequence, the bias cut, the way it fits your body when you try it on, kind of shines and brings you back, and then you want to know. That's really interesting that leather's cut on the bias. That's quite unusual. I wonder why they've done that. And then you're like, oh, it's got this wonderful story behind it, because it's for any figure, for any person, for any gender. So I think it was a really strong move, and I'm really impressed at them moving into this slightly more refined. I think they were quite aware of it as well, but also I felt like there was a real confidence.
Yes, it wasn't half 1 foot here, 1 foot there. They moved into a new space with the brand, and
and they've got new gen now as well, so it just feels like there's a real confidence in what they're doing.
They're staying true to what they did, but moving on, which I think is, you know, it's very easy to say, but actually very hard to do, especially, as you say, when they are representing a whole range of people that verbally is said as one community, but they're not. But then they've also got to look at supplying to people who have no idea about that community.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they're pushed and pulled, and I think today was a really great example of the median point of that, and where everyone can coexist and be satisfied through fashion.
Absolutely. Well, we're very satisfied. Thank you very much, Art School, and thank you guys very much for watching. Please do subscribe. Lots more live reviews to come. And if you are eagerly awaiting to see what this collection looks like, head to Show Studio. The collection images will all be there next to our review. So see you very soon.